Hey guys, and welcome to Tier 2 of the Creepypasta Iceberg, where things start to get a little more unsettling, you can say. If Tier 1 was just a surface filled with well-known internet horror stories, this is where the creep factor kicks up a notch. These are the pastas that aren't as mainstream but are still widely recognized among horror fans. They might not have the same viral fame as Jeff the Killer or Slenderman, but they do hold their own disturbing and memorable tales. So without further ado, let's just jump straight into the first entry. Candle Cove. Candle Cove is presented as a series of forum posts on a fictional discussion board where users reminisce about a bizarre and obscure children's television show that they watched in the early 1970s. This story unfolds through the memories of different users, gradually revealing eerie and unsettling details about the program. The decisions begin when a user named Mike Painter starts a thread asking if anyone remembers Candle Cove, a low-budget children's show that supposedly aired on a local station when he was young. Other users chime in expressing vague recollections of the program, though they are unsure if this was real or something they imagined. They describe the show as featuring puppets and a young girl protagonist, but their memories are fragmented and hazy. As the discussion continues, the users piece together details about the show. The main character was a little girl named Janice, who would interact with a group of strange puppet characters, including Pirate Percy, a timid, nervous puppet dressed like a pirate, and the Skin Talker, a skeletal figure with unnerving glasses and a permanent grin, wearing a tattered cape made from what appeared to be human skin. The Skin Taker was particularly disturbing, as users recall it smelled moving in a grotesque, mechanical way that didn't sync with the dialogue. They also remembered the show took place in an eerie, surreal world, often aboard a ship, and had a haunting, distorting theme song. The set design was unsettling, with crude special effects that made everything look slightly off. Despite being a children's show, it contained moments that felt too dark or strange for a young audience. One of the most chilling aspects of the conversation is when users recall a specific episode in which all the characters simply stood in silence, staring at the screen. There was no dialogue, no music, just the puppets looking forward as if watching the viewer. Some remember feeling deeply disturbed by this, as if the puppets were actually aware of them. The discussion takes a disturbing turn when users recall something that doesn't make sense. One user remembers asking their mother about Candle Cove years later, only for her to say when they watched it as a child, there was no actual show on the screen. According to the mother, all she saw was static, while the child sat in the front of the TV, watching nothing and laughing as if it wasn't really there. The revelation is the final and most terrifying twist of the story. It suggests that Candle Cove may have never existed as an actual television program, but was instead some kind of hallucination or shared mass delusion experienced by children. The idea that they were unknowingly staring at static, yet seeing and hearing something entirely different, raises questions about the nature of the show. Was it supernatural, a form of mind control, or something else entirely? The story's effectiveness comes from its subtle, slow burn horror. Instead of overt scares, it creates a creeping sense of unease through fragmented memories and vague eerie details. The conversational format makes it feel real, as the readers are uncovering a genuine internet mystery rather than reading a fictional tale. The final revelation that the children were watching static the entire time cements the unsettling nature of the story, leaving readers to question whether Candle Cove was something that truly existed or it was merely sinister presence manipulating their minds. Candle Cove has become one of the most famous creepypastas, inspiring various adaptations, including a season of the television series Channel Zero. The story taps into deep-rooted fears of lost memories, the fragility of reality, and the eerie, often surreal nature of children's programming, by presenting itself as an innocent conversation that gradually descends into horror. Candle Cove remains a powerful example of how subtle, psychological horror can be just as terrifying as monsters or gore. Abandoned by Disney. Abandoned by Disney is a creepypasta that follows an urban explorer as he investigates an abandoned Disney resort called Mowgli's Palace in North Carolina. The narrator begins by explaining how Disney has a history of creating resorts and then abandoning them, like Treasure Island in Bahamas. But the focus of this story is Mowgli's Palace, which was built in the 1990s as a jungle-themed resort inspired by the Jungle Book. The project faced controversy from the start. The land was acquired through eminent domain meaning the government forced people to sell their homes to Disney, which upset many locals. The resort's theme also offended people because it was depicted Indian culture in a way that was seen insensitive. After construction was completed, the resort was briefly opened but was mysteriously abandoned soon after. Disney never gave a real reason for shutting it down. Some believe it was due to financial problems, while others suspect something more sinister. The narrator, who enjoys urban exploration, decides to visit Mogul's palace to see what's left of it. After a long drive through overgrown roads, he arrives at the resort, finding it in a state of decay. Nature has started to reclaim the area, with vines and trees growing through the remains of the building. At the entrance, he sees a large wooden gate with a metal sign attached to it. Someone has spray painted the words, "Abandoned by Disney," across the sign. He walks through the gate, excited by the mystery of the place. Inside the resort, everything is in ruins. Broken wooden structures, shattered glass, and graffiti cover what was once a grand vacation spot. There are signs of vandalism everywhere, but it looks like the resort was abandoned so suddenly that some items were simply left behind. The narrator notices a large statue of Baloo from the Jungle Book standing in the courtyard, still waving happily despite being covered in bird droppings and vines. The eerie silence and emptiness make him feel uneasy, but he continues his exploration. He enters the main building, or what's left of it. Inside, he finds more destruction. Furniture is overturned, walls are covered in graffiti, and nature has started creeping in. The deeper he goes, the stranger things get. He finds evidence that some people may have been living there at some point, but no one is around now. As he moves through the abandoned hallways, he comes across an old, empty locker room. Curious, he decides to look inside. The locker room is mostly empty, except for a pile of old mascot costumes in the center of the room. Unlike the rest of the resort, the costumes seem strangely untouched by time. One costume in particular catches his attention. A Mickey Mouse suit lying in the middle of the floor, but something about it feels wrong. It's not the usual Mickey colors. Instead, it looks like a photo-negative version of Mickey. Black where it should be white, and vice versa. Even more unsettling, the costume seems to be rotting, with patches of fur falling off. The smell of mildew and something else, something worse, fills the air. Feeling disturbed but still curious, the narrator moves closer to the costume. Then he notices something horrifying. The costume begins to move. At first, it just slightly twitched, but then it starts to sit up as if something inside it is waking up. The narrator freezes, unable to believe what he is seeing. Suddenly, in the perfect clear but disturbingly wrong Mickey Mouse voice, the costume speaks. "Hey," it says, "wanna see my head come off?" Before the narrator can react, the costume begins to pull out its own head. He watches in horror as it yanks and twists, and then there is a sickening, tearing sound. Blood, thick, yellow, and foul-smelling gushes from the neck as the head starts to come loose. The narrator stumbles backwards, panicked, and turns to run. As he flees the room, he glances up and sees something scratched into the metal above the doorway. The words, "Abandoned by God," are etched into the surface, deep and jagged, as if someone had clawed them in their bare hands. Terrified, the narrator sprints out the building, not stopping until he's back outside where the overgrown courtyard was. His heart is pounding, and he can barely process what he has just witnessed. He doesn't look back. He doesn't take any more pictures. He just runs to his car and drives away as fast as he can. After leaving the resort, the narrator struggles to make sense of what just had happened. He never tells anyone in detail about his experience, and he never writes the blog post he originally planned. Something about the entire trip haunts him. He knows that Disney went to the great lengths to erase Mogul's palace from history. No official records mention it. No news reports talk about why it was shut down. It's as if Disney wants the world to forget it ever existed, but the narrator now understands why. They weren't just hiding an abandoned resort, they were hiding something much worse. As time passes, the narrator realizes he can never go back. He has no idea what the thing in the Mickey Mouse costume was. Was it a ghost? A demon? Something else entirely? He doesn't know, and he doesn't want to find out. The only thing he knows for certain is that Mogul's palace was abandoned for a reason, and whatever the reason was, it was something too horrifying for the world to ever know. The Smiling Man. The Smiling Man is a short horror story that follows an unsettling encounter between the narrator and a strange, terrifying figure. This story begins with the narrator, a night owl who enjoys long walks through the city at night. He has never felt unsafe during these walks and even jokes that the drug dealers in his city are polite. However, this sense of safety is shattered one night when he comes across something truly disturbing. It is a quiet weekday night, sometime between 1 and 2 a.m., when he notices a figure in the distance. At the far end of the street, a man is dancing. His movements are strange, graceful yet bizarre, like a waltz, but with each step exaggerated and unnatural. The man is dressed in an old suit, and as he gets closer, the narrator can make out of his face. His eyes are wide and wild, staring upward at the sky, while his mouth is stretched into a disturbingly large grin. The expression is unnervingly exaggerated, like a cartoon character frozen in an unnatural smile. Feeling uneasy, the narrator decides to avoid him by crossing the street. When he glances back, his heart stops. The man has stopped dancing and is now standing perfectly still in the middle of the road, parallel to him, facing him but still looking at the sky. The same frozen smile remains on his face. Fear begins creeping into the narrator's mind, and he continues walking, keeping his eyes on the man as he does, but he turns forward just a moment to watch where he's going. The smiling man vanishes. Before the narrator can process what happened, he spots something in the shadows. The man is now crouching in the darkness across the street, facing him. The realization hits him hard. This man is not just an odd drunk or a weirdo. He is something far more unsettling. He had moved too fast and too silently. A deep sense of dread washes over the narrator as he stands frozen, staring at the crouching figure. Then the man moves. He starts walking towards him in a long, exaggerated tippy-toed steps, like a cartoon character sneaking up on someone, but he is moving quickly, too quickly. The narrator wants to react, to run, to scream, but fear paralyzes him. He stands there, watching in terror as the smiling man creeps closer and closer. When the man is just a few feet away, he stops again. His body remains completely still, except for that disturbing, unnatural smile. Finally, the narrator finds his voice and attempts to speak, intending to demand, "What do you want?" Instead, what comes out is a weak, frightened "what?" That sound of his own fear only terrifies him more. The smiling man doesn't react. He just stands there grinning. Then after a moment that stretches into eternity, he turns around and starts walking away, dance walking as he was doing before. The narrator watches him go, relieved until he realizes something. The man has stopped. He is no longer walking away. He is growing larger. He is running towards him. Without thinking, the narrator bolts. He runs as fast as he can, his heart pounding in his chest. He doesn't stop until he reaches a well-lit, busy street. When he finally dares to look back, the smiling man is gone, but the fear does not fade. For the remaining months he lives in that city, he never goes for another night walk again. The encounters haunt him. The most terrifying part was not the smiling man was drunk, high, or deranged. It was the way he looked, utterly insane, completely detached from reality, and that, the narrator realizes, is far scarier than any monster. Penpal. Penpal is a horror story that unfolds as a narrator, now an adult, pieces together disturbing events from his childhood. The story, originally written as a series of interconnected posts, following his attempts to understand the strange and terrifying experiences that shaped his early years. What begins as an innocent childhood memories slowly unravels into something far more sinister, revealing that he has been stalked by an unknown figure for years. The story starts with a childhood school project where students write letters, attach them to balloons, and release them into the sky in hopes of getting a response from the Penpal. While most children never heard back, the narrator does, receiving a letter from an anonymous sender who claims to be his Penpal. The letters continue over time, growing stranger and more obsessive. Eventually, the narrator's mother puts a stop to it, sensing that something about the situation is off. As he revisits his childhood memories, the narrator recalls eerie incidents that would never quite make sense to him as a child. One of these memories is of waking up outside in the woods with no recollection of how he got there. He had gone to his bed in his home, yet somehow he found himself deep in the forest at night, barefoot and terrified. His mother and best friend Josh later found him and dismissed it as sleepwalking, but the experience never left him. Another unsettling memory involves an incident when he and Josh built a fort in the woods. They had left it overnight, only to return and find someone had been inside, leaving behind evidence of their presence. Small changes to the space, food scraps, and even disturbing Polaroid photographs as the narrator is sleeping on his own bed. The realization sends chills down his spine as he understands that someone had been entering his home and watching him as he slept. The most terrifying revelation comes when the narrator recalls a childhood pet, his black cat, which had gone missing. One day, a foul smell led him and his mother to a crawl space beneath their house. where they discovered that the decomposing remains of the cat. It wasn't the fact that the cat had died that disturbed him most, it was how it had been placed there, hidden deliberately. This suggests that someone had been inside his home without their knowledge. As the narrator digs deeper, he begins to connect the dots. A shadowy figure had been following him for years, sneaking into his room at night, leaving behind subtle yet terrifying clues. He realizes that the Penpal who responded to his balloon was not another child, but a disturbed adult who became obsessed with him. The stalker had been lurking in the background of his life, watching his entire home, leaving behind chills traces of their presence. In the final, most horrifying revelation, the narrator recalls a sleepover at Josh's house when they heard noises outside. Josh's mother dismissed their fears, thinking it was just animals, but the truth was far much worse. Years later, Josh confesses that he had saw something that night, someone watching them. This means that the stalker was always close, always waiting. Realizing the full extent of what happened, the narrator is left haunted by the past. His childhood, once filled with innocent adventures, was actually a nightmare he was too young to understand. The story ends with a chilling sense of unresolved fear. While he has pieced together much of what had happened, he never truly knows the full truth. His stalker could still be out there, watching, waiting, and perhaps never really gone. Zalgo. Zalgo is a mysterious and chaotic entity that has become a major figure in internet horror lore, primarily associated with disturbing, reality-bending imagery and corrupted text. The character first emerged from internet culture, originating in manipulated newspaper comics on the Something Awful forums by the artist Dave Kelly, also known as Smorky, initially a niche meme. Zalgo quickly spread into a border horror mythology, inspiring creepypasta stories, artwork, and even urban legends. Zalgo is often seen as an apocalyptic being with vast supernatural abilities, primarily associated with destruction, insanity, and reality distortion. While descriptions of him form very widely common themes, including a shadowy figure, multiple eyes and mouths, and a red and black color scheme, in some interpretations, he is said as to have 7 mouths that speak in 6 horrifying tongues, while the 7th is reserved for singing the song that will end in the world. His presence is often linked to disturbing imagery, where cartoon characters and text become warped, featuring extra eyes, mouths, and a sense of overwhelming madness. The core concept of Zalgo revolves around the idea that his influence corrupts everything he touches, both visually and mentally. People who encounter his presence in stories are often driven to insanity, suffering hallucinations, paranoia, and overwhelming sense of dread. In extreme cases, Zalgo's victims are physically disfigured, their bodies twisted into grotesque forms. Some versions of the myth suggest that Zalgo is a viral entity, infecting and consuming realities, much like a Lovecraftian force that exists beyond human comprehension. Despite Smorky's clarification that Zalgo was originally meant to affect only cartoons and comics, later interprets how expanded his role into something much larger. Many fans see him as a cosmic horror, akin to H.P. Lovecraft's Great Old Ones, existing beyond time and space, waiting to consume all of its existence. Some stories depict him as an eldritch god who whispers dark secrets into the minds of those who become obsessed with him, while others portray him as a demonic force actively working to break through into reality. One of the most recognizable aspects of Zalgo's presence online is the use of corrupted or glitched text, often appearing in comments, memes, and creepypasta narratives. The text is usually garbled with an excessive diacritical marks, creating an unsettling, unreadable effect. It serves as a signature of his influence, implying that a web page, message, or even a piece of media is Zalgofied, a visual representation of his corruption spreading through digital spaces. Zalgo has also incorporated into various creepypasta stories, sometimes appearing an antagonist who corrupts individuals or entire realities. He has been linked to characters such as Slenderman, or even an internet-born horror entities, often portrayed as a more powerful or ancient force compared to them. Some interpretations even suggest that Zalgo has a cult-like following who worship him and seek to hasten the arrival of the apocalyptic reign. While Zalgo's mythology remains open-ended and fluid, the sheer depth of its spread across the internet solidifies as one of the most iconic internet horror figures. His presence continues to inspire digital horror artists, writers, and memes creators, keeping the legend alive, whether seen as a creeping force of madness, a meme that got out of control, or a fully fledged god of destruction. Zolgo remains a testament to the internet's power to create and evolve modern myths. In the end, the true horror of Zolgo is not a singular defined story, but in the idea that his corruption is ever growing, lurking just beyond our perception, waiting to break through. Your Time Is Up. Your Time Is Up is a chilling creepypasta about a mysterious countdown timer that appears on people's devices, seemingly predicting their deaths. The story follows an unnamed protagonist who begins receiving eerie messages that start as an unusual pop-up on their phone. The message simply reads, "Your time is up, 24 hours." At first they dismiss it as a harmless glitch or a spam notification, but as the countdown continues, the situation becomes increasingly disturbing. No matter what they do, the messages refuse to disappear. Restarting the phone, closing apps, and even resetting their device has no effect. The timer continues counting down, second by second. When they switch to another device, a laptop, tablet, or even a friend's iPhone, the message follows them, appearing on every screen they look at. It seems as if the countdown is tied to them personally, and the realization sends a chill down their spine. As the hours pass, anxiety builds. The protagonist searches online for similar cases, but finds nothing helpful. Desperate, they reach out to their friends, hoping someone might just have an explanation. Most dismiss their fears, joking that it's probably just a virus or a well-crafted prank. However, one friend suggests checking forums that specialize in paranormal experiences. Through these forums, they discover a handful of similar stories. People had also received the "Your Time Is Up" message. Each case follows the same pattern, a 24-hour countdown that appears out of nowhere, impossible to remove. However, the most unsettling part is none of the original posters ever followed up. Their accounts go silent after the timer reaches 0. Panic sets in as the protagonist watches the clock wind down. Every attempt to escape the message fails. They leave their home, hoping that the physical distance might break whatever is happening, but the timer still follows them. They even try to go offline entirely, shutting off all their electronics, yet somehow the numbers continue counting down in their mind, as if it's burned into their brain. As the final minutes approach, fear turns into desperation. The protagonists barricades themselves inside their home, clutching a weapon, convinced that something is coming for them. They attempt to stay awake, believe that whatever happens at 0 must be linked to sleep or unconsciousness, but exhaustion takes hold, and the last seconds disappear. Their vision fades to black. When they wake up, everything seems normal. The timer is gone. The devices work as if nothing ever happened. Relieved, they convince themselves it was just a strange hallucination, the result of sleep deprivation and paranoia. However, as they step outside, something feels off. The world looks slightly different. Colors dull, the air is heavier. Strangers on the street glance at them with unreadable expressions, and familiar places feel wrong, as though they have been subtly altered. It is only the way to look in the mirror and realize the truth. Their reflection does not move. Frozen in terror, they watch as their own reflection smiles back at them. The realization sinks in. Whatever the countdown was leading to, it wasn't death in the traditional sense. They are no longer part of the world once they knew. They have been replaced. The story ends ambiguously, leaving readers with the unsettling question: what happens when your time is really up? Username 666. Username 666 is a creepypasta based on a well-known internet urban legend surrounding a mysterious YouTube channel that supposedly contained disturbing supernatural content. The legends originated from a video uploaded by a Japanese user, Nana825763, in 2008. The video showcases an eerie and unsettling experience when someone repeatedly refreshes a specific YouTube page linked in the same username, 666. The story follows a curious internet user who attempts to visit the banned YouTube account 66. Initially, the page displays the typical message: this account has been suspended for violating YouTube's term of service. However, after refreshing the page multiple times, strange things begin to happen. The background of the website starts shifting to a dark blood red color, and the text on the screen becomes corrupted, displaying random symbols and the obvious phrase X666 instead of normal words. Each refresh distorts the page even further, making it look more chaotic and unnatural. Eventually, the restricted channel appears, and a list of videos become visible. The user, unable to resist their curiosity, clicks on one. The footage is disturbing, grotesque imagery, distorted visuals, and horrifying deceptions of violence. The video seems almost alive, filled with unnatural movements and eerie sounds. As the user watches, they attempt to leave the page, but the computer refuses to respond. The video player no longer has a pause button, and every attempt to close the browser is unsuccessful. Panic sets in as the situation escalates. The videos grow more disturbing, showing a woman drowning in blood and demonic figures lurking the shadows. The user desperately tries to shut down their computer, but nothing works. The horror intensifies when a skeletal hand reaches out the video itself, breaking the boundary between the digital and physical world. The screen distorts even further, and suddenly the entire system crashes. In the aftermath, the user is left shaken and traumatized. They later learned that the 666 account had been permanently removed from YouTube due to the extreme nature of its content. Some believe that the account was cursed or linked to something beyond human understanding. Strangely, every record of its existence seems to disappear, with online searches returning no useful information. The few who claim to have witnessed the channel report experiencing nightmares and unexplained paranoia, as if something from the videos had followed them into the real world. The legend of username 666 continues to spread as an infamous internet horror tale, warning people never to attempt visiting the cursed account. Whether it was a simply well-crafted hoax or something truly paranormal remains unknown. However, the fear it instills lingers, making people question whether there are corners of the internet best left unexplored.